So we did a whole report on it on the Scuttlebutt, just talking about like what the news of it was, and how the one Army general came and checked it out. Said this is up to snuff. This is not easy. It's not like removing the shark attack created this soft entrance into the Army. Like we're just changing it up so that it's a little different whenever they're first entered. But there was a lot of people that say, the shark attack is fine. Like, they need to be sort of shocked out of like their system in a way. So I don't know if you have ideas on it, wouldn't mind hearing what you're thinking of it, mainly because this morning is about drill instructors and drill sergeants. So I'm sure that there's opinions about it.
I'm actually not I would say your traditional drill sergeant. So with the Kansas Army National Guard, I went to the active duty drill sergeant school. And then when I came back, unlike the reserves has drill sergeants, but drill sergeant battalions. The National Guard, if we send anyone, it's going to be like a recruiter. So that way we can double tap them on RSP weekends, which is Recruit Sustainment Program. That's a program that when you enlist, before you go to basic training, you drill 1 week in a month. And basically we teach you everything that you need to know at basic training. So you have the up and up on, and you're not like drinking from the water hose. So that's when I would perform my drill sergeant duties. So I've never honestly been and done a cycle at drill sergeants. At basic training, I just utilized my drill sergeant skills during RSP weekend. So unfortunately, I have never got to do a traditional, I guess you could say, shark attack, or even the 100-yard shark attack, whatever you want to call it. But we did utilize some of that during RSP weekend. And I mean, I believe that it's effective. It does get your, that shock in the system, and they're like, oh, like I better listen to everything that's going on. So,
well, I'm gonna start the theme music and start letting people in.
Wonderful. Let's do it. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Veterans Breakfast Club for Wednesday, June 23rd. This is our coffee hour, so I hope everyone brought their coffee. Ellie and I were just saying how we're both sort of waking up, and I feel with my 18-month-old, I'm consistently in a phase of waking up or falling asleep. I don't think I'm ever really fully awake, and maybe I'm not ever fully asleep, but it's kind of where the day is. Ellie, how are you this morning?
Doing well. My coffee is helping.
It's good. Happy to see that we have all of our guests here today. Veronica Conran, Bart Womack, Carl Curtis. We're going to be talking drill instructors and drill sergeants this morning. But I want to loop back that Monday night. We've had a couple pretty good programs over the last couple days. And Monday night, we had on John Hawes. He was a Silver Star recipient. Was a part of the ambush on Battle of the Hill 2610 in Afghanistan. Really powerful story. His friend Jared Monty, who received a posthumous Medal of Honor, his parents were on the program that night. We were just commenting before starting the program how sort of powerful and moving and sort of tense that conversation was, and that also something that I didn't kind of realize, it's kind of in a way a silver lining of these Zoom programs. Is, I didn't think about this, and I haven't thought about this for a year and a half, but someone brought it up and I thought it was very interesting. And Bart, you'd have something to say about this, is the idea that in a movie, when you're going through a kind of an emotional part of the movie, there's usually close-ups, and those close-ups really bring us to the character and what they're feeling. Well, I hadn't thought about that, but looking at Monday night and John talking about that battle, and Ellie and I were saying it was almost as if he was reliving it while telling it. And, Bart, when you were talking about the attack, the embedded enemy attack that one night, I thought about that evening and you talking through that, is that on Zoom, we're really in close up our cameras are sort of right in our faces, and we're talking about these really difficult things, and you can really see the changes. It's a lot different than our in-person events when we're in a big mess hall, and you're sort of watching and from a distance. So I think that sort of brings us really intimately into someone's story in a way that we probably hadn't thought of. And I thought I'd sort of toss that out there as sort of an idea if anyone has any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I would say that, I mean, you're 100% correct. You're put in that moment, depending on the question or what you're actually describing about the event. If you were there, you have no choice but to kind of see it in your mind. You may be looking at the audience. So when I'm public speaking and I'm talking about, especially that story, I may be looking at all of them, but I see none of them. All I see very vividly is the picture of the events that happen, the emotions and everything. So you're 100% correct.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it. Anybody else have any reactions to Monday night and even Tuesday night? I know I wasn't on last night. I was given the night off, which was very nice of Todd. But Ellie, could you give us sort of a recap of last night?
Yeah, we were joined by P-51 pilot Joe Peterburs, and he was talking about his service, which spanned years and years in multiple wars. And we really only dug into his...
Oh, Ellie, we lost your sound. We'll have to get back to you. Give me a test once you can.
Sean,
but yes,
can I say something?
Of course.
You are totally indoctrinated. If you may not realize it, but rather than say with our meetings at a restaurant or a dining room, you said a mess hall.
Yeah. It's true. That sort of came out and I was like, where'd that come from? Veronica, you're kind of new to the group here. I've been with the Veterans Breakfast Club for about a year now. Ellie, being Todd's daughter, also, she sort of have been a part of this since the beginning, which was in 2008. And I do remember on my interviews, they were like, what'll be the biggest challenge to joining the VBC? And I was like, probably going to be the language barrier. There's probably a lot of acronyms, different military speak that you're not going to you're going to hear and you're not going to quite know what they're saying. But boy, yeah, you're right, Ida Mae. Thank you for that. I'm in. It only took a little over a year, but I made it. So yeah, I wanted to open it up to the group to see if anybody had any reactions to the last couple programs, any thoughts that sort of stuck with you. I know that I didn't sleep well at all, not because of my daughter, but Monday night, just after John's story, it really sort of it stayed with me. And it sort of just kept me up and kept my brain working, like sort of just how that night sort of transpired in the story that was told. So yeah, I thought I'd open it up to the group a bit here this morning to start off.
Well, Monday evening, having Sergeant Monte's parents on, and it's still a very emotional reaction for them and grieving, as well as I forget Cunningham's first name, but was also involved in the operation, and just having those add to how powerfully John recounted the story about the battle. It was very compelling.
Yeah, I was so moved by Jared's father and the stories that he told about Jared, about him being, how he was when he was young and how it was just sort of in him to be this very humble, very giving person. That even in Afghanistan, everybody that was coming in the army was like, we want you paired up with Jared. Like they were pushing everybody to Jared just because he was, such a sort of, he was like a born leader. So it was awesome to hear that side of it and really bring the human aspect into the story. I was really touched by it. But this morning we're here to talk about drill sergeants, drill instructors. I'm really excited by this because I think there's a lot of ways that, in a way it's like part of this is kind of fun because there's this myth, I'm not a veteran, but there's this sort of myth about drill instructors and drill sergeants. Go ahead and I'll share my screen here. I have everybody's bio up. Bart Womack joining us, 29-year Army veteran, recipient of 2 Bronze Stars, he joined us, part of our Tomb of the Unknown Soldier program, as he was the sergeant of the guard there. Also was a drill sergeant. Veronica, we've mentioned you. You're the first female drill sergeant in the Kansas National Guard. Carl Curtis, Marines drill instructor. I think I had some pictures that I pulled up, because when you Google and say drill instructors, drill sergeants, the first things that pop up are these like questions. Google always sort of populates instantly about drill instructors, drill sergeant. What are you trying to search for? But if you search for the pictures, you get a lot of these like really sort of intimidating like pictures of like guys up in your face. And one thing I've thought of whenever I saw this picture was the hand. And I thought, I need to ask first off about the hand. It's the first thing that you sort of start to see is this sort of like four-fingered, thumb-tucked thing. And Veronica, I'd ask you first, do you do this particular motion? I have you muted. I'm going to ask you to unmute.
I apologize.
That's okay.
I'm in the office setting, so I'm going to continue to probably do that.
No problem.
But I think I did the knife hand before I even became a drill sergeant. I think it's just something that NCOs or non-commissioned officers inherit and have learned from others.
Bart?
Yeah, most definitely. I don't know where it came from. I never had that under me. So, but you pick up all these different things of, I would say, traits, and sometimes they're from other drill sergeants, and sometimes you just, it's the thing to do to get someone's attention. So, yeah, that is a very effective one. I would say that, well, okay, I do have to see that foot locker. That's why he's not closer. But that thing would probably be, I don't know, 4 to 6 inches away from their nose.
Yeah, just to kind of focus them, like,
Oh, yeah.
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 Let's see if we can go past this picture. Yeah, just a lot of like this, and Veronica, we were just talking before we started. This seems a little shark attacky. We talked on our podcast, the VBC podcast, about the shark attack and how the Army has recently tried to start to move away from that in favor of what they've called the first 100 yards. They felt in a way that the shark attack might be a little bit too intense whenever new recruits show up at the base. And so they said, okay, we're going to start to do away with the shark attack. It's been a little bit controversial. We don't need to go into the controversy idea, but the main idea of it is like, we want to shock you out of what civilian life was and let you know that you have reached you're in a different world. You're in Oz now. And Veronica, we were talking a bit before that we started the program about how you feel it's very effective.
Right. I do feel like it is very effective. So you have kids or young adults that come off the bus or wherever they're at. Because as I explained, I've never had a traditional cycle. So they come off the bus from all different walks of life. Some have had structure, some have never had structure. And it's really just an instant like, all right, I'm in a different world. It's a shock to the system. I got to pay attention to what's going on. I see this kid messing up. I'm going to try to not mess up. I personally feel like it's very effective, whether you're like right in their face or even if you are like, I guess, an arm's length away or however you want to say it. I feel like it's a very effective tool.
Carl, you were a drill instructor, is that correct?
Correct.
Now, also a question I had was, is there a difference between drill instructor and drill sergeant?
Just a term in the service.
Term of service? Okay, if I accidentally refer to anyone as the other term, I apologize this morning, because drill instructor is Marines, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Is it the same way? Is there's that shark attack bit right as the recruits enter, like this first sort of like, we're gonna gobble you up and let you know where you are?
At Paris Island, your first week is a transition week. When you get there, that's when you get your vaccinations. You get issued your uniform. So you're really not with your drill instructors. You're with the receiving drill instructors while they're getting you through the administrative phase of recruit training. Mm-hmm. That Saturday after you arrive is when you have your initial strength test, and then you get turned over to your drill instructors. And so it's transitioned over time. I remember the first time when I went to the drill field as a drill instructor in 1992, there would literally be every free drill instructor in the company would be there on the day that they pick up. And once the recruits were given the instructions by the company officers and the senior drill instructor, then they would tell them to get online. And the sharks, if you will, every drill instructor would just then create chaos.
Mm-hmm. Is that sort of the idea then? It was one, and to shock them into the new area, but two is like create this chaos.
It is. It's the beginning of the development of you got to think under pressure. You got to perform under pressure. Obviously, this is their first day. It's not something they're expected to do, and a drill instructor really keys on that person that is the last one online, moves the slowest, doesn't sound off, and they attract attention to themselves. And so it's the chaos of that and trying to begin the development phase of being able to think and perform under pressure.
Do you think, I would think that as myself, I would be on the bus and I would know this is coming. You can sort of prepare yourself a bit for like, okay, this is going to be intense. We're going to get off the bus. I've heard about this, and that maybe would give you a bit of like, it's not going to affect me as bad. Did you ever see that in any of the new recruits, or did you get a sense that all of them were really like shocked by that immediate interaction?
Probably the only ones that I would say are somewhat mentally prepared for that would be a kid who was in the junior ROTC program and may have gone on a trip to the base and got to see the environment a little bit. But the standard person who wasn't around you can explain it all day long, but until you're engaged in that process, there's no way to really be prepared for it.
Right. Veronica, you probably have a reaction to that idea, because you've been doing this with JRTC for how long?
Since I came back from drill sergeant school, so 2011, off and on, if my availability was there. But I agree 100%. Unless they've had some experience with junior ROTC and going to a JCLC, I think it's junior leadership camp is what they're called. They would have experience with that, but the average civilian probably would not even comprehend how to expect to feel during that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, Sean, I'll go back to drill sergeant from 82 to 84.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're looking at 3 different decades here of being drill instructors. So things are different in each one of those decades, but getting off that bus is still the same. Things that happen at the recruiting station or before they actually come to the company are still the same. And it may just be the platoon that's actually filling at that time. It all depends on how the company is being filled. Sometimes all at once, sometimes just a few and a platoon at a time. But even with that, as Carl said, everyone's back there. All those other drill sergeants are back there at the unit, even waiting for a few of them. So it is absolute chaos. So even those who think they are prepared by having done ROTC or junior ROTC before, there's drill sergeants IDing those people who think they're too cool for school and you got this. No, this is not high school anymore, Johnny. Welcome to the real world. So there's no preparation for it. And of course, as I talked about the different areas in Veronica's time, those people are Googling. In Carl's time later on, depending on how long he served as a drill instructor, they got to Google. There was no Google in 82 of what that would look like. There might have been some stuff shared with someone, but even those who tried to be cool about it and act like it wasn't going to affect them, then now you just put a target on your head because you're not going to get by.
Leo West, I see you have your hand up.
Back in 51, it was a little different. The first sergeant was the first person you met when you came in, and he introduced himself by saying, "My name is Sergeant Culpepper, and I'm your mama and your papa and your etc. Then we were introduced about 2 days later to our field first. There was no such thing as a drill instructor. They called him the field first. So he was a field first sergeant.
Mhm.
And he was quiet, but he made sure that you did what he said. And
Yeah.
it was very different than what you see in the, especially in the movies about the Marines.
Leo, do you remember that first moment stepping off the bus?
Yeah, I didn't have too many. I'd been in a prep school before I came there. I thought the discipline in the prep school was a lot more than it was in the Army.
Brian, I see your hand up. Brian Giunta.
Ron Giunta.
Ron. I don't know why I always think Brian.
Okay.
I'm looking at R. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry, Ron.
I have to agree with Bart. Every decade of drill instructors is different from the other. When I went through basic training in 1980, all my DIs, and in the Air Force, we did call them DIs or drill instructors. They were all Vietnam veterans. Okay. So they experienced things that at that point in time in our lives in 1980, we may not experience, depending on how long we stayed in the military. But, and again, getting off that bus, very first thing, you did not know what you were in for. And I don't care how many movies you saw, like the drill instructor on Full Metal Jacket. Everybody remembers him, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I forget the actor's name. But anyways, there's nothing like being there and having a drill instructor in your face and breaking you of every civilian habit that you have, because now you're isolated and you're in a situation where you've got to make the best of it. And oh, by the way, the whole group, we called them a squadron or squads, but the whole group of the recruits together in the barracks, you have to learn how to become a team. And it's called cooperate to graduate. And
graduate. I'm glad you brought up Arlie Ermy, and thank you, Joe, for putting that into the chat, because I actually, while I was, obviously doing my Google research prior to this, I pulled this up, the Full Metal Jacket scene. I wanted to share it real quick. Hold on, let me actually share with sound. But what I found really kind of funny about this particular clip is that they've done it with it censors all of the bad words. So I thought it was a little bit funny. I was going to play it real quick.
The video is pretty small if you want to expand it.
Thank you. That better?
Yeah, it should take up the full screen because we can see the full computer screen.
I heard bad words in basic I never knew existed.
Hey, the guy was brilliant. And he was a veteran too. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is one of the most famous scenes in Hollywood history. And this was a Vietnam War film, correct?
Right.
Now, Bart, Carl, Veronica, has anybody brought these lines to you, or like anybody's, is this what it's like? Since this is so iconic, this particular scene, do a lot of people assume that this is exactly what it's like? I mean, obviously him grabbing the shirt, I don't know if you're allowed to do that anymore.
Yeah, you got to keep one arm's distance. It's actually a pretty thick standard operating procedures for a drill instructor, and actually a drill instructor in the Marine Corps. They put their career on the line every day because you got a responsibility of making Marines and developing them. But in the first picture you showed with the knife hand,
Mm-hmm.
a drill instructor must stay one arm's distance away at all times. Therefore, a recruit can't accidentally, or the drill instructor can't accidentally poke a recruit or touch a recruit. Does it happen? Certainly it happens out there in a high tempo, but if a recruit would allegate on to the series officer that he was touched, other than there's three reasons why you touch: to adjust the recruit's position, to guide them in a direction if they're going the wrong way, or to adjust their uniform. Other than that, grabbing them by the stack and swivel, it's just not not authorized, and you'll get voided, relieved, and your career will be over.
Stack and swivel?
Yeah.
That's the first I've heard that. What is that? The shirt and tie?
No, the neck and the head.
I've never, Ellie, have you ever heard that? The stack and swivel?
No, I haven't. I'm learning something new, that's for sure.
When we talk about the errors again, where in my time you couldn't touch them, there was no distance thing, so you could get close with your face if that's what you wanted to do, and that wasn't, as long as you didn't touch them. So, but that's how we learned as a military. Was that necessary to get real close? Was it necessary to grab? Like Carl's talking about, you couldn't do it during his time, but you best believe it happened even before my time. Not during my time, but before my time. I remember so when we talked about getting off the bus, I remember that very vividly. And the guy that in Army reception station, you come in, you get your vaccinations, all those uniforms, all that type of stuff. But the guy that we had in charge of us there before we left to go to actual basic training, that dude was tough as I don't know what. And I thought he was a drill sergeant, minus not having a drill sergeant hat. He was that freaking difficult. And he would step on people's feet. This is your right foot. This is your left foot. He's teaching the initial drill and ceremony. So if you went the wrong way, he said right face and you went left face, he'd come step on your foot and stomp on your foot. I wouldn't say step. I remember that. And I was like, Lord, if this guy comes close to my feet, because I played football and I've been stepped on by cleats, and you had this, initial reaction of people close to your feet, because that was the steel spikes. I'm playing football in the 70s, right? That hurt. I was like, Lord, if this dude comes that close to my feet, I don't know what I'm going to do. I might push him away, because that was always my natural reaction. So thank goodness he didn't do that. That might have been something. Something difficult, but in terms of being preparation, so what and being prepared to get off the bus when the drill sergeant's there, it was like I wasn't prepared, but in a sense I was, because this guy was so hard. I was like, oh Lord, we're gonna get killed when we finally get to basic training. This guy's not the drill sergeant. Shit, what did I sign up for?
Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. Does drill instructors get still today closer than one arm's distance? Yes. What happens in the squad bay and what happens outside in the public eye are two different things.
Right.
But that's if you get caught, then you're going to get reprimanded.
Yeah.
Jim Roberts.
I think one thing, I did my basic training at Fort Dix in '69, and to set the scene, getting off the bus is something that's very vivid. But the other thing that's very vivid is day two. Really, the first full day there, you're wearing totally new clothes. You're wearing boots that hurt your feet, and it just shaved your head. And you add that kind of setting to the situation that you're in with these drill sergeants in your face, and whatever you were, you're gone. Whatever you knew about normal has just disappeared. You can do nothing right, and there's no right answer as far as that's concerned. My impression still today is those were some of the finest individuals I ever met. They were mean and tough, but the uniforms were incredibly sharp. I mean, you looked at these guys, there wasn't a wrinkle anywhere, and they were straight, and they just looked every bit the picture, and it's still an impressive picture to me. This is 52 years later, and those men were just incredible individuals.
That's something I was sort of starting to lean into, is this idea of how highly respected the drill sergeants are. Because do you feel that drill sergeants and drill instructors kind of, and I should say Idame, the company commanders, do they get they have a bad rap? Veronica, do you think that they get a bad rap?
I wouldn't say that the drill sergeants get a bad rep. I mean, the drill sergeants themselves, when I went through drill sergeant school, it was embedded that you are pristine. Like you are the top 10% of the Army, because there's only so many that are selected to go, that cut the mustard to go first off, because you have to have the extensive background check. And any of those that actually make it through drill sergeant school, make it through their drill sergeant tour without, being investigated for something or having just done something that you shouldn't have done, you really actually end up being the top 5% that left their tour on a good note. So you really are the top notch of the Army. And that's what's embedded into us when we go through drill sergeant school.
I want to get back to that because I have a couple questions about drill sergeant school. But Carl, Bart, do you feel at all that because of how drill sergeants are, Google searched and the scenes that we see in the middle, and all these things, do you think that they get a bad rep?
I don't think so. I mean, it is the cream of the crop. It's the best of the best, and you need that to train, just civilians that know nothing about nothing, and you're trying to make them soldiers. So in all those different areas where I wasn't necessarily preparing those initial recruits for combat right away, of course, we didn't know when that was going to happen, where Carl's time is different and Veronica's time is completely different. You have to embed the mindset that that's always a possibility, and that's why they signed up in the first place. So you need the best of the best. I don't necessarily think they get a bad rep. Every time one steps out of line, yeah, they're going to get it for a minute, but that goes away. They're still the best of the best, training recruits to be soldiers, Marines, airmen,
Posties.
so on. Yeah.
Tell you something else, Sean. The drill instructor job is a very hard job. I mean, it is not an 8 to 5 job. You've got drill instructors that start work at 6:30 in the morning, and they may not get off work till 8, 9 o'clock at night. I mean, we got off the bus. It was 11:30 at night in the rain, and our DI was there, and he had already worked a full day. So, I give a lot of credit to drill instructors because it takes a lot of personal effort to do that particular job and be patient with it.
I would have loved 6 a.m. How about 4? That'd be more accurate.
Yeah.
How about 3? You got to be at work at 4 o'clock.
There you go. That's what I mean. Starting at 4.
Yep.
Well,
Deborah.
we had 3 DIs and they did shifts.
True.
Mm-hmm. So that brings me back. Let's take a step back here and say, okay, the cream of the crop, that's probably a draw to be a drill instructor, is like, I want to be the best of the best here. And especially being even 5% of that is like, even better. But what makes you want to do that? Where's the drive to say, I want to become a drill instructor? Carl, do you have any thoughts on why?
Yeah, absolutely. So what I always saw is what Veronica was talking about when those drill instructors return back to the Fleet Marine Force and they're out there. It was those Marines who always stood out to me. Their level of confidence, their ability to address and deal with the officers along with the junior Marines. It really just stood out to me. And typically the people that I hated, that I disliked the most, were the ones that I ultimately ended up emulating. And so I saw that difference in that Marine who had been drill instructors. They stand out in a unit because their job as a drill instructor and the way they carry and conduct themselves doesn't change when they leave Parris Island. And so that's something that I was really impressed by. And so as soon as I had an opportunity as a young sergeant to go to the drill field and learn that and go through that process. And once I'm down there, then I realized why they were different. It's the relationship that you have with the officers and the peers. You're dealing with, like Veronica said, the top 10%. And so those are the Marines to your left and to your right that you're working with every day. And so you got to step up your game and you got to always be at your best.
Bart?
When the Army has 500,000 people, an active Army has 500,000 people, and you're in the top 10%, and you know that particular craft or profession, if you will, of a drill sergeant is the top 10% of 500,000 people, and you have an opportunity to do that, and you're accepted into that. I mean, that is the motivation in and of itself. Out of 500,000 people, that's the top 10%. Now, obviously, all those 500,000 wouldn't be eligible drill sergeants or officers aren't. So, but still, very high number to be just 10% of. So that's probably, part of the initial part. And as Carl said, you'll see some people who, you may want to emulate as well. I had one person that had an impact on me, and he just carried himself in a certain way that I wanted to be that guy and do those things. He happened to be dual-hatted of the things that I did in the future. One was drill sergeant, which I did first, and then the second was Ranger. But I saw that in one person that made me pursue those things, and that's what I want to do. Because 10% was drill sergeant, and then even a small percentage was Ranger. So that's the direction I went, and it paid big dividends. But just to be that kind of cream of the crop was special, and I know that you could pull it off. I was 23 years old when I went to drill sergeant school, and so for I guess 6 or 7 months, I was 23 years old as a drill sergeant. So from ages 23 to 25, I was a drill sergeant. So at that young age, and only being in the military for 5 years, that was the how my career started off.
Veronica, what made you want to become a drill sergeant?
I feel like I'm a little bit different. I'm National Guard, where it seems like everyone else was active duty status. My drive was, we owned our recruit sustainment program, and we were always looking on how can we improve it, how can we give them realistic training before they went to basic training. Our drill sergeants that we had before, it had been 2007 that they went to drill sergeant school, and everything's evolving all the time. So what they had learned at drill sergeant school, probably it wasn't accurate to what is actually being taught at drill sergeant school. So that was my drive, is I wanted the best information to give our recruits before they went to basic training. And just as someone else mentioned before, like the impression of my drill sergeants when I went through basic training has stayed with me forever. Like they are I think of them very highly, and that's what I wanted to be. And I've also had the drive to where I've always wanted to set myself apart from the rest of my peers. And being in the state of Kansas at that time, we had 5,400 soldiers. So to come back and say that I am a drill sergeant qualified, it's even smaller than, 5%, because we didn't, I think right now today we have maybe 5 drill sergeants that are qualified that are still serving. So wow. It's even smaller.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing, and this is something I didn't know before the program, is that you have to be selected to be a drill sergeant or instructor, correct?
Yeah, there's criteria that you have to meet. So there's a packet. There's a packet that you put up. I'm sure it's probably changed since I went, but you had to be at least an E5 or higher that had, at that time, ALC, Advanced Leader Course. Mm-hmm. You have to be physically fit. You can't be failing an APFT or whatever the physical fitness standards are, and within height weight standards. And you have to be recommended within your chain of command.
Okay. Now, this takes me back to the idea of drill instructor school. You come up as a new recruit. We've said you stepped off the bus, you get hit with the shark attack. It's a shock to the system. You're not in Kansas anymore, though, Veronica, you were in Kansas.
I
am. But you go to drill instructor school. Is it this? How do those drill instructors make you a drill instructor? That's where I'm sort of confused, because you get off that bus, and what do you expect going there?
Personally, go ahead.
Go ahead, Veronica.
My experience, I think also, as it's been said, each error is going to be 100% different than what the other person experienced. I feel like I went during a time that was more lax. I was totally expecting the drill sergeant shark attack. They really treated you like professionals. So I think going there expecting the worst, that I'm going to repeat basic training all over again, and then them just treating you at the utmost professional and just embedding that in you, like you have to be a professional while performing this job, really just made it even more important. It was very stressful. There was a lot of memorization. You do go through some of the phases with drill sergeant school that implements and basic training or mimics basic training, but it was not the experience that I thought I was going to get.
Mm-hmm. And I want to come back to the fact that you're the first female drill sergeant in the Kansas National Guard. I want to come back to that because I think that you probably maybe had a different experience going through drill sergeant school than everyone else. But back to my original question, Bart, Carl, how is that? What's that school like? How do they train you from now you've been in the Army or the Marines for a time? Now we need to bump you up to the next level.
Part of that is, well, first off, the attrition rate at drill instructor school. Not everybody that goes, a large percentage of them don't make it through.
Is there a reason for that? Not to interrupt you, but
yes.
What are some reasons why there's
part of it is what you're alluding to. So you've been out in the Marine Corps, in the Fleet Marine Force, and now you're going back to a recruit training environment to learn to be a drill instructor. And so while the instructors are professional in the way they do things, it's still, you're being told, get on your face and do push-ups, because those instructors at drill instructor school, they want to embed the reality into you of what a recruit, puts you back in that recruit mindset, that they're human beings. And so you need to keep that in the back of your mind as you're training these recruits. They're not superhuman. And so they want to teach you not to be abusive, but to be productive in the development. And so the Marine Corps Drill Instructor School, basically, you're doing everything a recruit does except for firing on a rifle range. And so you're just taught the process of what goes on at the rifle range from the recruit standpoint. But you're physically going back through all those phases of recruit training to remind you that, this is what the recruit's got to deal with, and you need to be on their end of the stick before you get out there on the street and start doing it. And we talked about the changing. It's a constant change. Every 3 years, Paris Island changes. And why does it change? Because every 3 years, the drill instructors, the company first sergeants, the command staff, they change every 3 years. And so when that new group of people come in, they tend to go back to the way it was when they was on the drill field and run their company. So first sergeant who runs the company will run the company the way that they can relate to it when they was a drill instructor. And so and 3 years later, that person moves on, new person comes in, and it changed 3 years later. And so that's why it continuously evolves, at least at Paris Island.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say the environment in drill sergeant school was extremely professional. So when we talk about, they know that they are receiving that top 10% of the Army, and it was extremely professional. And I think in every environment that you go to, there's one or two people that kind of stand out. And so there's one instructor at the drill sergeant school that totally stood out in terms of professionalism, took no crap. He could chew you out, and it was like, he could be 10 feet away from you. You're going to feel the impact of it. No swearing, but you knew he meant business, and he was extremely professional. So that set the tone for professionalism of a drill sergeant for them once they finished school to go straight to their unit. So when I went through, it was self-paced. Everyone started the first week, I believe the first 2 weeks, you get, everyone did the same thing. After that, they were called modules. So you could sign up to do the module of teaching, dress right dress or forward march or something like that. So you have to learn all these individual movements and squad movements and group movements. That's what you learn. You learn how to teach those things. Mm-hmm. And you learn them, you practice them with fellow classmates, and then you go out and you actually do the test. You sign up for the test, you kind of put it in a box. Some instructor, at the school is going to get that, and then it's your turn to actually do that, that particular movement or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You pass it, then you move on to the next thing. If you didn't pass it, you had to do it again. And I think you got 3 tries to pass it. If you didn't do it after the 3rd try, then you were out just on that thing. So that's what drill sergeant school was. And in my days, it was self-paced. So once you finish that, you can move on to the next one. It wasn't necessarily lockstep. So I remember school being 8 weeks. I can't remember if it was 6, 8 weeks. I think it was 8. You could be finished in 6 weeks. You still had to stay for 8.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't when I went through.
You didn't get 2 easy weeks if you finished in 6, though.
Well, none of it was no. It didn't. Just meant you got to be if someone was doing their particular test and it required 8 people, you're going to be one of those 8. That was your. Yeah. That's what they got to do. Yeah.
Veronica, I want to come back to that idea of you being the first female drill sergeant in the Kansas National Guard. So, did you have a different experience going up through the drill sergeant school, and what was it like receiving that title? We have you muted.
I apologize.
Right.
Going through drill sergeant school, during the time I went, they would only send us to the active duty drill sergeant school, which is in the same building as the reserve drill sergeant school. It's just different wings at that time. So there was 100 soldiers that showed up, and about 8 of us were females. And then of those 100, there was only 3 National Guard soldiers that were in attendance of the active duty drill sergeant school. And there's always rivalry between active duty, reserve, National Guard. So right on the bat, the 3 National Guard soldiers kind of had a target on our back. Like that was one of the first cycles. I mean, there's National Guard soldiers that have been, but that was a cycle that they had National Guard ones. And then it just, they knew that we were going to fail out right away because we're not active duty. And then, so on top of that, being a female, being a National Guard, I also was 23 years old so I was the second youngest one out of 100 people, and that put a target on my back because I was a staff sergeant, and that they were like, there's no way that you can be a 23-year-old staff sergeant going through drill sergeant school. Like, what the heck? How did you get here? So my determination to get all the way through was that drive of, I'm going to show all these people wrong, and why I'm here is because I set my eyes on something and I go get it, and I work my butt off to get it. Coming back, I found out that I was the first female drill sergeant in the state of Kansas, and I didn't know that was even a thing. So my state was pretty cool about it. There was a news article on it, which I think you showed in the bio.
Yeah.
And the state adjutant general held an award ceremony, and I received an ARCOM for being the first female drill sergeant. So it was pretty cool.
What'd your family think?
My mom is super proud about it. She thinks it's like the best thing ever. And I mean, it's just something that I did. Honestly, I don't feel like it puts me above anyone else. I mean, going through drill sergeant school is tough on its own, but I don't really feel like my gender has anything to do with it. So
now, whenever you go home for like the holidays, are you kind of the one that kind of gets everybody corralled and gets everyone in line to?
No.
You take the break.
I do that at home enough. So yeah, when we're all together, I just kind of sit back and relax. But I have a pretty big family, so I corral them and, sometimes pull the drill sergeant skills out with them.
Bart, Carl, is that the same? Like you got home and you kind of were like, sometimes you had to pull out the drill sergeant to like get everybody in line?
No. There's actually a poem that was written, the drill instructor's wife request. This says exactly that, when you walk through the doors, you take that cover off.
Yes.
To the kids, you're not the drill instructor. To the wife, you're not the drill instructor. So
Yeah, I agree. I didn't take that home. I tell you, in corralling family and all those types of things, of course, family knows, like, look, you don't pull that stuff in here. We're not your recruits to do that. But the command sergeant major is much tougher than the drill sergeant. I would tell you that. That guy, yeah. So they don't want that guy. That guy is much more difficult than the drill instructor. That drill instructor, yeah.
You're a drill instructor level, Dad, and we,
Yeah, that guy's nothing compared to the sergeant major. They don't want that. So,
right.
but at home, no one gets that. They don't know what we're doing now.
Bart, question. You've gone into the acting field, into your transition into civilian life here, and I thought about this is like, looking at that scene from Full Metal Jacket. I wonder how much of that was scripted and how much of that was improv. Do you have to be very good at improv to be a drill sergeant or a drill instructor? Like when you go in and you start dressing somebody down, it seems like you need to know, you gotta have to have this stream of consciousness going. And if you're gonna hurl insults or get somebody riled up, you got to be able to talk. Like you can't be a person that gets tongue tied like myself.
All right, I'm going to give you some super insider scoop. So first and foremost, being a military technical advisor in film and television, it's real versus real. The technical advisor brings the REAL for the REEL. Mm-hmm. Most of the time, the REEL wins because that's backed by millions of dollars, and the REAL is only backed by the technical advisor and their, their pursuit to make it as REAL as possible. So. Mm-hmm. That's the first side of it. So it all depends on what the production wants. So in this particular case for this movie, they wanted REAL as much as possible. One, I actually met and spent some time with Arlie Emery, and we talked about this. And I forget what he was doing. I forget what he was doing I think he was trying to get into the movie as a background person or just play a role, but not that role. Mm-hmm. They found out that he was in the Marine Corps and everything, and that he was capable of doing it, and he auditioned and he got the part. So he was playing Arlie Emery. I don't know what his name was. I forget his name in that in the
Gunny Hartman.
Yeah. But he was actually brought his own authentic self to the role, and he just did what he knew to do. So aside from the lines, which how do you write that? I guess you can write it. I think you can only write it if you have the experience. So don't know. They try to do what they possibly can, but he was just Arlie Emery and just took over the role. You film, I'm going to be me, and then we'll go shoot the next scene. Yeah, it was pretty funny when he told me that. So, and then he went on to do other things. He said, Bart, once you get your foot in the door, keep it in the door, otherwise it'll close on you. And that's how he was able to do all those other things that he did, and how. I would tell you on the film part. So when I was in drill sergeant school, I was finishing up. It was from March to May of 1982, and I know I got a cosmetic makeover. Thank you very much. The movie. Oh man, I can't remember the movie. Anyway. Richard Gere was the recruit in the Navy, and I can't think of the name. Louis Gossett Jr. was the drill sergeant.
Officer and a Gentleman.
Yeah, Officer and a Gentleman. So that was coming out, I think, like in April or early May in 1982. So to go to see that while I was in drill sergeant school was kind of surreal, just to see that depiction, knowing that it's Hollywood, but. I think I admired how he was tough, but fair. So if there was a takeaway, should you take something away from a movie to go to be an actual drill sergeant, it was the fair and tough, and I carried that throughout my career. Where he put on a facade, if you will, of I won't say put on a facade. He was tough and act like he didn't care, but in the end, it showed that he did have some compassion. And I think that's just a leader in general. So whoever technical that was spot on, in my opinion.
Ron, you sent me a question, but I'm gonna highlight you if you'd like to ask it.
Okay, I got a question for either Bart or Carl or Veronica, and that is, As a drill instructor on the job, you're at basic training and you've got all your new recruits, but maybe you have some recruits who are like 25, 26 years old. They've got college behind them. They might be married. Did you ever treat these recruits a little bit different based on their level of maturity?
Great question.
I can tell you that the older ones that come in that had a career prior to coming in and they wanted to serve and they come in through. I remember I had a 26-year-old that was as old as I was. And it was more challenging for them because they're dealing with the mentality of the 18-year-old mentality, because that's what most of the recruits are, 18-year-olds that's in there. So it was more challenging. Did we treat them differently? No, I think we treated everybody fairly, firmly, and with compassion. But those older ones, we certainly, without letting them know, gave them. We understood where they were coming from, but they also needed to learn, and they needed to be challenged as well. So I don't think we treated them any differently, but we didn't treat them like an 18-year-old either, because they didn't act or think like an 18-year-old. So they were smart enough to keep themselves out of the limelight most of the time.
The reason why I asked that question, I was 26 years old when I went to basic training. I had 3 years of college and I was married. But in the meantime, after we got through the initial 2 or 3 weeks, my drill instructor kind of like gave me jobs to do that were more of a mature job. Instead of scrubbing the floor with a toothbrush, he made me the flight office attendant, taking care of his books, his schedule, like taking his 3x5 cards and putting in this folder. Yeah, they're small jobs, but my jobs are different than some of the other recruits.
Those older ones, you say that they would earn the opportunity to become a squad leader or a guide. You would find that they would pull away with that maturity, certainly more so than the 18-year-old. Not all of them, because some of them were not physically capable to set that example and be well-rounded. But yeah, there are the exceptions, and that maturity comes into play, not at the beginning of training, but when you talk about when you're into second phase or third phase of recruit training, you're certainly going to come to the surface.
So in the Army, those platoons that you have they do have to have that lower level of leadership. So we do look for a platoon guide, a platoon sergeant for that platoon, and squad leaders. So you would kind of look to the person that was older if they showed that maturity. So Carl's right, but it was all about the maturity and nothing else. Who's going to be mature enough to be a leader of this group of people in this platoon? But that happens very early on, after the first week or so that we are appointing leadership for that platoon. Now you can get fired and hired at the drop of a dime. So just because you were mature then, if you messed up, you could be put out, and now you're going back to be one of the Joes if you won the platoon, and someone else is going to be in charge of that platoon in leadership at a different level. And additionally, there are some odd jobs that you would look for anyone capable of completing the job, like you said there, sir, of doing some other duties and responsibilities throughout the cycle. But I mean, if they were older, you would expect them to be more mature. You would see if they were more mature. And if that displayed itself, you could probably gain yourself a leadership position or other responsibilities of a mature person.
Veronica?
I would agree with everything that was said. Being a little bit more unique, my drill sergeant skills were used on drill weekend. Our soldiers that had a family that were older really actually kind of had the privilege to, if they were close within the vicinity, to go home that night on Saturday night, be with their family, because we were able to trust that they were coming back, to where like an 18, 19-year-old necessarily isn't that much trust instilled in them, because they're still in that partying phase, and we have a job to do. We have to train them. One specific person that comes to mind is when I came back from drill sergeant school. We actually had, I believe he was 30 when he went through RSP, so basic training. He was a split op due to he was a teacher. So we definitely did teach him a lot different, or treat him a lot different. We also did not put him in leadership skills or in leadership positions because we wanted to develop the other people. Like, we already knew he could display how to lead a platoon or like lead a squad. He already knew how to do all of that stuff. So we were giving other people the opportunity to grow from there. That was just my experience.
I was talking with my brother last night about this program, and he brought up a really interesting question. I sort of just chat with him. He's not a veteran either, but I chat with him sort of about this job and the people and different topics that I'll be talking about. And he sort of thinks things a little differently than I do, but he brought up the idea, and I wanted to give him credit for this question, is it a skill or a talent or just innate that drill instructors are sort of able to take people's weaknesses and make them strengths?
Mm-hmm.
I can address that. Going back to the previous question that you had asked also about, do you have to have these certain qualities to be a drill instructor? And it's really not. It's a learned skill. You're not quick on your feet to speak and say things. And in the Marine Corps, when I first became a drill instructor, I was on lights to lights for the entire cycle. And so. You
mean lights to lights? Is that like?
Yeah, from the time they wake up.
Okay.
You got to be there 30 minutes prior to them waking up, and at least 30 minutes after they hit the rack. And so that entire cycle, for the whole 3 months, I was on lights to lights, and it was brutal. I mean, you were fatigued, you were tired, and you never eat in front of a recruit. You got to be superhuman. And so we would even, like, if we had duty, I would sleep with the lights on, and the recruits thought I literally never slept, because I'd set my alarm and I'd get up and I'd walk out through the squad bay. Like, every hour I'd go walking through the squad bay. So they thought, like, man, this guy don't ever eat. He don't ever sleep. Like, he's like superhuman. And so you learn these things, and it's through that time and the importance of which, at one point we would say, you're being hazed, being lights to lights for a whole 3 months. But, I mastered the recruit training cycle in that 3 months, being there, observing what those more seasoned drill instructors were doing, which made me more powerful the next cycle. The tougher the drill instructors were on me as a new drill instructor, the more I grew. So, I mean, obviously you could take it from a positive or a negative. You can gripe and complain about it. But I certainly looked back at my successes on a drill field, and it started right there with my first cycle as a drill instructor. And the challenges. And for recruits, we hire and fire, like Bart said, throughout the cycle, because one of the things is, as a leader, you got to learn how to perform if you get knocked down. You got to get up, brush yourself off, and continue to come back. So if you was a guide or a squad leader and you got fired, are you going to feel sorry for yourself, or are you going to continue to try to improve and then earn that position back maybe later on in the cycle? Because as a drill instructor, I always wanted that good leadership group of guide and squad leaders, because they was as good as a third drill instructor to me. If I had a strong group of recruit leaders within the platoon in third phase, when it's fast paced.
Yeah, they're like an extension of you, and that's what you want. I mean, they're gonna do a whole bunch of things for you that that you can't, because you can't be in every place. And Carl's talking about that lights and lights. I remember I had to do that. I'm not sure the environment that you had in Carl, but most of our platoons had 2 drill sergeants. I had my first cycle. I joined the company, and they were already 2 weeks into the cycle, and I joined that platoon. The very next cycle, so my second cycle as a drill sergeant, I had 60 some recruits, and I was by myself. the partner that I had in that platoon, he was off doing something else. I forget what he was doing, but I was by myself also, all those 60 guys. So it was lights for lights by myself during that. Definitely learned a lot during that time, but I really had to lean on trainee leadership and groom them to do all the right things. So there's a lot of hiring, firing going on. As Carl said, you fire, but you can get your position back if you work hard, because someone else might get fired. So that happened a lot.
Bob Mizwa and then Jim Roberts. Bob?
Yeah, I was interested in the various DIs, if any of them had officers, because I know, like, I went through 4 years of ROTC at W&J, and in 1968, between my junior and senior year, I had to go for 6 weeks of summer camp. And they paired us up with the 82nd Airborne. And I'll never forget our instructor, Major Lamadou. And his first words were, at the end of summer camp, you're going to be able to run 7 miles. And we did. And he made us do the airborne shuffle every day at the end of the cycle, or at the end of the day. And the Jody songs he taught us, But I give him a lot of credit, because I was in really good shape, but he whipped our guys in a tip-top condition. I mean, I ran a mile in 5 minutes and 35 seconds at the end of the year.
That's fast.
But I came in like 12th, because the guy that came in first was a cross-country guy from Penn State. He stood like 6'4", 6'5". When he took a stride, that was about 1.5 of mine, because I remember him leading us and then passing me, Yeah, but
I'd rib you a bit, Bob, and say it doesn't matter. You should have beat him. But
no, he was in much better shape than me. But he had a lot of emphasis on physical training, and I can't ever remember him using the F word, but just his command presence. And I was 6'2", 172, lean and mean, in the best physical condition I have ever been in my entire life. And I'd look down at him when he'd talk to me personally. But there was just this air about him, like he just conveyed this. And have any of the DIs, had ROTC or RA, officers in teaching them or taking them through basic, and if, what do they do today? How is ROTC handled? Do they still do it the same way, where you go away for 6 weeks, in between your junior and senior year? Or anybody have any officers like that? They do it still similarly?
Veronica? And good question. And I also want to get back to the Jody cadence, because Don Nemchek had brought that question up. So we'll get back to that. But Veronica, Bob's question to you.
With being in the recruiting battalion for quite some time, we dealt with a lot of cadets that were going through ROTC, and there's at times that they could choose which path that they wanted to do that summer camp with the ROTC program, or if they wanted to come in enlisted first and go through basic training and then continue through ROTC and then commission. So we've had a little bit of both, I guess you could say, at our recruit sustainment program before they've gone to basic training. There's that option. But as far as I know, officers don't, what I've experienced, officers do not go to basic training.
So in today's Army, Army ROTC, and all those colleges and universities out there, I'm going to mess it up in terms of how they exactly do it. But it was implemented about 2011 that they all go through a basic training like environment. Some of them are doing it before they begin their freshman year. They all kind of experience it during their summer camp, which is between their junior and senior year, but all of them are required to do it in a certain level in today's ROTC. So they all get to experience that, because they've learned really how beneficial going through that environment is versus not gone through it, and how much they learn. So even as an officer, so they all go through something similar to that in today's ROTC, I should say.
I can only speak for the Marine Corps. the way the Marine Corps goes in ROTC, they go to college, and as Bob said, between your junior and senior year, you go to OCS for 6 weeks. That's half of your OCS, and then you go back to school. You finish your senior year, you get commissioned, and then you go back to OCS, and you're with those other ROTC students, and you're doing your second half. So they're not training with the basic. The one who wasn't in there, they're going to be in a different platoon. Now, as far as who trains them, there's actually the prior drill instructors who get stationed at Quantico, Virginia, which is where our OCS is at. They pull them in the summertime to go over to OCS. And there's those prior drill instructors are assigned to Officer Candidate School, where they conduct the teaching of drill and all the finite things. The officers, which is part of the platoon staff, are there to teach them how to be officers, but the drill instructors or the former drill instructors, they call them sergeant instructors, not drill instructors at OCS. And they teach them drill and the other leadership type things that they need to know and understand as a young officer.
Jim Roberts.
Want to add another dimension, and that's actually serving with drill sergeants. I did basic at Dix, infantry IIT at Fort Polk, and then I went through OCS. My first assignment after commissioning was as a training officer in a basic training company at Fort Campbell. And probably one of the reasons the tour I had in Vietnam went as smoothly as it did was the training the drill sergeants gave me while I was working with them while they were training troops. It's not like they put an arm around my shoulder and said, "Follow me, son," but they were right there in my hip pocket, giving me information I did not get, and adding to the dimension to make me understand the position I was in and what was expected of me. So I think drill sergeants and drill instructors not only have a tremendous impact on the recruits, but I think they have a tremendous impact on the other NCOs and officers with whom they work when they're doing the training. That's the kind of individuals they are.
And I want to get to that question too. That's one of my last questions I have is sort of the relationships that are built there. But I want to get over to Don Nemchek. I don't know, Don, if you want to, you're here with us. I don't know if you wanted to ask your question, if you wanted to turn on your video. Don also just joined us for a recording of our podcast, The Scuttlebutt, to talk about war music. We had a really excellent conversation. That's going to be coming up in 2 weeks on The Scuttlebutt, talking about music from the Vietnam era and a little bit about post 9/11 music. It was a really awesome conversation. I'll just say that. But in 2 weeks, we're going to have that podcast up on our site. But Don, keeping with that same idea of song, Jody Cadence, what was your question?
Yes, good morning. Just a question to the crew. I'm an older guy. I went recruit training 1970. They were actually, I'm still in touch with my drill instructor. We're on Facebook together, and we share some conversations, and it actually is very cool. But I remember the Jody calls after a while. When you're marching, they get some rhythmic cadence. I know the Marine Corps is very famous for it. And just addressing that issue, do they still do the Jody calls? Some of ours was quite salty. They were funny. You didn't laugh, but they were still funny. Jody, for the crowd, is a fictional character that typically takes your place when you're gone, oftentimes with your girlfriend or whatever. But I'm just curious out to the crowd. Do you remember any good Jody calls? Maybe not, we can share with a mixed audience, but how does that relate to the drill instructors of this current era?
I would say that's a tradition that will never go away. And I'd be surprised if Carl said they don't do it today and Veronica says they don't do it today. Yeah, if you're marching from point A to point B, and I know that all these units are running silently in a big group, just boring, as you know. So wherever it started from, obviously it's a great tradition, but I'd lay everything on the line and say that it still continues. I know it does in Army, active Army. I would tell you, when I was a drill sergeant, we marched from point A to point B for the different classes that the recruits had to go through. And in the time that they were in a class, there's not much for the drill sergeant to do. So I would make up cadence to sing, and then I'd sing it on the way back, from that class. And that's how I would create some. There was some that you kind of know, and they're kind of traditional that you carry from time to time that sound pretty cool, but I would take it a step further and make up some as well, because it was just fun to do that if you could sing. Now, everyone can't sing. They don't teach you how to sing in drill sergeant school.
There's not that part of the class.
You are skilled or you are not, and the ones who can't sing at all, they don't really attempt to do it. They probably can do it a little bit, running, because it's a little bit different. But it was always fun to kind of make them up, and always good to sing them. And then they can be motivational, or they can be more direct, as Don mentioned. So it's.
I see an SNL skit in this.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Thank you.
Veronica, there's any cadences that you do now or did while you were in training? Sorry, you're muted.
There was a couple traditional ones that I would do. I would definitely say that Jody still definitely has a presence within the Army branch in general. As in cadences saying about Jody, there was a yellow bird one that you had to censor. When I went through drill sergeant school, there's just a lot of things that have become more politically correct that you don't say, but in reality, there's still Jody around, and everyone knows who that is. But yeah, cadences are a strong presence.
Veronica, may I ask, is there a female version of Jody?
I think Jody just kind of is a general name for both, because it kind of is a gender neutral name as well. So yeah, yes, Jody.
I guess he's asking, did you ever say Jody's got your guy and gone?
Yeah.
I've never personally said that, but I think there's probably been a couple of comments that it was like, oh, Jody. It's just, what is it, a Y or an I? We don't know, but
So
yeah.
When I was in Korea, so I left being a drill sergeant and went to Korea and was in the DMZ. So our platoon there, half of it was American soldiers and half was ROC or Korean soldiers, right? And we'd all run as a platoon, and we'd sing American cadence. And I'm not sure what the Koreans would do. They'd be a little moment, they'd try to get some of it, or like the key, like reframe, they'd sing that. But then we'd switch up, and there was always a GI on the outside singing cadence and a Korean on the outside singing, and then we'd switch up, and then they would lead, so it's in Hangul, right? So I took it a step further to learn some of the Hangul cadence so I could sing that. Oh, they loved it, the fact that I could Hangul and sing cadence in Hangul. So it's pretty cool to say some of that. And yeah, I forget. I mean, I could say it, but it wouldn't make sense to you guys. Yeah, it was always pretty fun to do that with them.
Carl, same thing, cadences that you guys had in the Marines?
Yeah, I think a lot of the cadences are all pretty similar across the board. And in recruit training, when we were doing PT, physical fitness, running in platoon formation, we would call cadence. But if we was hiking or stepping it out from point A to point B, we have hiking cadence too, but we typically didn't call. Maybe in third phase, we would do the hiking cadence for the recruits, but throughout, what we'd use that as an opportunity to recite knowledge. So we would use it as a teaching tool, and we would sound off, the questions for the knowledge, and then they would give the answer, which helped the recruits learn and retain that knowledge, because a phenomenal amount of knowledge is being compressed into them throughout the phases. And there's a first phase test and a third phase test, which is graduation requirement. And so you had to seize every opportunity. So one thing we haven't talked about is the roles of a drill instructor in the Marine Corps. Depending on the season, in the summertime, you would have 3 drill instructors for 80, 90 man platoons. But in the wintertime, when the recruiting was down because kids were still in school, the platoons would get smaller. So we might go to 4 or 5 platoons only in a company instead of 8 that we might have in the summertime. And so you have all these extra drill instructors. So then those platoons would have sometimes 4 or 5 drill instructors just because we needed something to do, which the recruits couldn't get away with anything then. But drill instructors in the Marine Corps, our drill instructor team has a role. As a third hat, you're the junior guy on the team, and your role is to develop the discipline, self-discipline, and teach the knowledge. So, and you're the disciplinarian, you're the major disciplinarian. So you're just killing the recruits at every opportunity you can. You're correcting and constant corrections. And but when you're teaching the knowledge, like I would take my hat off and set it on the footlocker, and they would look at me different because I didn't want them to be intimidated by me. I needed their undivided attention. And so they loved it, and they looked forward to knowledge time with me because that's when I wasn't being a jerk. I wasn't thrashing them.
There's a different
100 miles an hour. Now you got the experienced drill instructor, which is the middle guy, or girl, and they're the experienced drill instructor. So they can be your worst nightmare or your best friend. So they're that's the person in the team that you can, the morale could be down and they could just come out and say, ah, and it would motivate them. It would, he or she could instantly turn them back on from their morale being low to get it pumped up like that fast. And then you had the senior drill instructor whose role was mom or dad, he was the nice guy that gave out, if you had a care package sent in, when he was on duty or she was on duty, then they'd be the nice guy, and they give you a little bit more free time, so on and so forth. And
it's
so,
kind of a good cop, bad cop, middle cop.
Yes, and the importance of that is too, if the junior drill instructors were doing something wrong, you want them to go to the senior drill instructor so that then that senior drill instructor would address that with the drill instructor. So we had roles, and those roles, and recruits, obviously they don't know the difference. But I know, and we talked at the beginning about, are they disliked as a drill instructor? It was always my focus to be the most hated drill instructor going into the rifle range. So first phase, I was there, I was killing the recruits, and at every chance they wouldn't get a break. And the reason being is because during the rifle range, the drill instructors are there, but not on them as much because the primary marksmanship instructor was there a lot with them teaching the marksmanship stuff. And so that hatred would turn into respect. And so by time, there was some more downtime where you wasn't around as much. And they would realize that, hey, and I know as a first sergeant on the drill field, I would make sure I told my recruits that, you got to realize that these drill instructors, they're being tough on you. Success in this profession means you live, failure means you die. And so they got a job to do. And as much as you might dislike them, you realize that they have children at home, and you see them more than their own children do throughout the course of this training. So that's the devotion that those drill instructors are having to you. And so keep that in the back of your mind, and it would make a difference on how the recruits would perceive the drill instructors. Obviously as a drill instructor, I wouldn't be talking to my platoon like that. The senior drill instructor would, but not as a third hat, because I didn't want to be like that, but that by the end of the training cycle, the respect was phenomenal because you were the hardest one on them. And typically a Marine doesn't ever forget their drill instructors. They forget a lot of other things, but never forget their drill instructors.
There's kind of like this reverse thick skin that you need, because I yell at my cat and I feel bad. Is there a point where you kind of feel bad for the recruit if you've dressed them down, or is this just no, this is business? And like you said, life or death situations are what you're going to be involved in. So I have to dress you down. I have to get you up to this level. Is that more a case?
Yeah, it's all about developing them mentally, not just physically, but mentally, because you know, when you're in a combat zone and the heat is on, you know, there's no time for, you know, you got to be mentally tough and strong. And you got to know that you can rely on that person to the left and to the right. And and what we talked about at the beginning, where, you know, when they come in on day one, you know, you're dealing with 80 individuals, and the drill instructor's mission is to take those 80 individuals, and something, it might take them 2 hours to clean the squad bay at the beginning of training, and they do that same thing in 15 minutes at the end of training, because now they're working as a team. And so that's developed in them throughout the recruit training process.
It is all a very strategic and planned, you know, process. Because at the end of the day, or at the end of the cycle, I should say, you know, you have taken a candidate or a person, and now you've made them a soldier, you've made them a Marine, and you're trying to make them the best that they possibly can that you're going to put out there that's going to go to that unit.
That represents you.
Do that, our Army, our Marine Corps, our Air Force, and our Navy is not going to be good. And it goes back to the drill sergeant. So days after drill sergeant, I get a new, you know, person in after they gone through basic training and gone through their advanced individual training, and they weren't good. I'm like, who the hell was your drill sergeant? Because they messed up. And I want to know who it is, because I haven't been a drill sergeant. I'm going to call them up and find out what the heck they did, or why we need to fix that and get them out of program, because, you know, they're not creating what we need in the Army. So it's very strategic and planned that you are developing that person to be, you know, top notch as much as they possibly can in that duration of the training period. So what Carl mentioned about wearing those hats, they had 3 hats. Man, what a luxury! Had to wear all those hats. So in the Army, you have to wear all those hats, where you're the tough person, you're the, you know, good cop, bad cop, and then you're the compassionate person, and you're the person that has, like he said, take the hat off. And now more strategic in teaching from a kind of an academic standpoint, where I need you to retain this knowledge to pass this particular part of the training. You had to wear them all. So, and I don't remember that. As a matter of fact, I know if it probably goes back to that professionalism part in drill sergeant school that gets you to embrace being all those hats. That's the kind of person that you have to be. And a lot of people succeed at it, but there's some that don't succeed at it. You know, they want to be the drill sergeant, to be that person to holler and be hard all the time, and that does not work. They will not be successful. So you have to have the skill to do all those things. In the Army, you have to wear all those hats. And I'm still Carl, but, you know, like you said, he was a third hat and sometimes, but I'm sure possibly as it went on for him during that time, maybe he wore some different hats as well, but he developed the skill to do all of them.
Bart, that kind of answers one of Deborah's questions here that she put into the chat, that if there's competition between the different DIs in one company, you know, you want that platoon to be better than the other one. There's healthy competition, it seems, throughout. So I have one more thing I want to get to, but then kind of something funny is that idea of respect. Like you, Don Nemchek, you said that you still talk to your drill instructor. There's this level of respect that's built over the course of that training. You know, a lot of people remember their drill instructor, their drill sergeant. Do you ever become friends with these people after service? And you know, there's that mutual respect that sort of develops over the course of this, I guess, ordeal in a way.
I didn't have that respect is there. I've met several soldiers after being a drill sergeant that were my trainees. So you would see them and they come and say, you're my drill sergeant. And I have to look at their name. Okay, yeah, I remember you from those times. So you can usually remember the names and the faces. Now, if it happens 12, 15 years down the road, it gets a little bit more difficult. But yeah, I've had that happen a lot. I've had it, pop in the book as well. But here's one that really stands out, that you talk about small world in the military, and I'll be quick here. So the guy that I was telling you when I first joined the military at the reception station, that was stepping on people's foot and was really, really hard and all that type of stuff. Well, fast forward I was assigned to a unit, and I go into the unit, and then this guy is there. My company is right beside his. I'm in Bravo company. He's in Delta company. You know, and he's there now. He's a sergeant first class. I'm a staff sergeant. Getting ready to make sergeant first class, and that. But he's, you know, now we're in the regular army, and you know, he's in that. You know, like, you were my whatever. Of course, he doesn't remember that because all those people are kind of going through. And after he finished that time at the reception station, he wanted to be a drill sergeant, and you know, came out of that program and done other stuff. So then later, he was my first sergeant when I was a platoon sergeant. After that, he was my battalion command sergeant major when I was a first sergeant. Then he was my brigade sergeant major when I was a first sergeant. So from that very initial thing, eons ago, he ended up being in leadership positions above me, and we got to work together, and now we're still friends and talk today. And that goes back to 1977.
Wow. I know we're hitting up close to time here, but I have one last thing. It sort of aligns with what Deborah asked. Is there a funny story? But one of the articles I came across in my research was 6 things a drill instructor can do that is worse than hitting you. I'm going to go down the list, but I do want to hear your comments on the first one. First one is give you a nickname for the rest of your life. Second one, make you chug an entire canteen. Third one, force you to use your mattress as a scrub brush. Fourth, smoke you all day. I heard of this, like smoke you, like just be on you, I think. 5, recycle you. 6, just stare. You didn't want the stare. If you got the stare, I think you just knew, crap. But is there, Veronica, is there a nickname that you have given to a recruit? Carl, Bart, I want to ask you guys as well. Is there a nickname that you sort of given to somebody that like, oh, that's going to stick for a while?
Yeah. So like I said, being unique, we had them during recruit sustainment program, and the roles that Bart was talking about. So my role for our recruits was, some of those were my recruits. Like, I recruited them because I was also a recruiter, but on drill weekend, I was a drill sergeant. So they had to learn that Monday through Friday, I'm Staff Sergeant Bart Lee, but on drill weekend, it's Drill Sergeant Bart Lee. And once that hat goes on, it's game on. So there was a recruit that I had that was filling out his life insurance form, and he had a child with another woman that it was just his girlfriend, I guess you could say. So he didn't know what the correct term to put on the life insurance form. So he put baby mama. And then the recruit sustainment coordinator reached out to our NCOs and was like, whose recruit is this that put baby mama on it? So that poor kid, so the whole time he was in recruit sustainment program, we called him baby mama. But we would find little, there was a female that had hiccups all the time, so we would call her hiccups. Now that would probably be considered hazing or bullying. So that shows the difference on that. But we have definitely given nicknames to soldiers all the time. I know when I was at basic training, someone called someone jelly packets because they always kept on sneaking jelly packets out of the chow hall. What's worse than a drill sergeant punching you? You said canteen, like drinking a whole thing of canteen. So what we called those hydration formations, to where they would make you, I went through the heat of the summer in Leavenworth, or not Leavenworth, Leonardwood. So they would make you drink a whole thing of canteen. And I don't think that necessarily was the worst thing that they could do, but what the worst thing was is if you had a battle to the left or right of you that couldn't chug a canteen, and you were waiting on them because they made you hold the canteen upside down empty above your head. And there's things that drill sergeants say that you're just like, what in the world are you thinking? But when they tell you they can make air heavy, they're not lying. They really can make air heavy. So that canteen would get heavy after a while, waiting for everyone else that felt the need to sip their canteen. So there was a time that, not when I was a drill sergeant, but when I was actually in basic training, I would look and see where the drill sergeant was, and I'm like, give me your canteen. So we would swap out, and I would chug their canteen because I was like, I'm not going to sit here any longer than what I got to. Smoke you. So that's a smoke session. That's not like necessarily being on you. They're going to
okay.
make you do front back goes. So front means push-ups, goes means run in place, back means flutter kicks. Or like they'll just come up with all different kinds of different physical exercises. And one thing that we would say a lot is we're going to make this room rain, because it's a war room. So it's just a small room that everyone would be in there. They would be doing exercises, and their intent was to get it so humid in there from everyone's body heat that the walls would start sweating. So recycle, that means start you back to basic training from day one. I think that's probably the worst thing a drill sergeant could do to you is recycle you, but there's a reason why they would do that.
I say everybody gets a nickname for the most part. I mean, not everyone in the whole platoon, but a lot of them got nicknames. And you do something like she said about the jump jackets or whatever, you're going to get a nickname and it's going to stick for a while. And shoot, it may change to something else if you do something else. So it's out to me because everyone got one. You know, if you can pronounce people's names, you didn't even try as a drill sergeant. You were just alphabet. And if there were several alphabets, okay, you're alphabet 1. It doesn't matter. You're going to be alphabet. I'm not going to pronounce that stuff. You don't get the respect of getting your name pronounced. If it's difficult, your parents messed that up. That's just that's a drill sergeant mindset. You're just alphabet, damn it. It sticks out to me with this guy. He's probably about 6'3" or something like that. I'm 5'10", and his name was Nipper. And Nipper one day didn't shave, and so from that point on, I just called him Nipper Face. I have no idea why, but he was always Nipper Face from that point on. So, and he was so tall, so I would never look up to him. Once I identified that thing that he didn't shave, so that he would always be in a lean and rest when I talked to him, I said, I would not look up to you. And then another one that I did, I got this from that the Louis Gossett movie there, Officer and Gentleman, was, don't you eyeball me.
And thank you guys for that. And Michael, I want to call on you here to help you talk about the Veterans Helping Veterans Wellness Festival that is coming up Saturday, the Saturday 26th, June 10th, 10 to 5. Sorry, Saturday the 26th of June, 10 to 5 p.m. in Homestead under the bridge. Michael, did you want to say any words about the Veterans Helping Veterans Wellness Festival? So sorry for the delay, Michael. Thank you for hanging with us.
Oh, no worries. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, just a quick plug. So the Veterans Helping Veterans Wellness Festival, 26th June here under the bridge in Homestead. A number of the partners will be there. We have booths and tents set up with all the different organizations that help and provide stuff for veterans. So the whole Wellness Festival is to draw veterans in, make them aware of all the different services and great organizations that are out there. The VA will be in offering COVID vaccines that day there. You know, we have a stage, 5 different bands donated to play, food trucks, Army Recruiting Command's bringing in stuff for the kids. We have the old military vehicles will be there. And in the morning, we also have a memorial ride to honor the Gold Star families. We have 7 Gold Star families and a memorial motorcycle ride that goes to the National Cemetery for a service there and back, and then a small service here. So it's going to be a good day. And it's open to the public too. It's not just veterans. We want the public to come on and also be aware of what the veterans are going through and how they can help out, maybe shake a hand. So we appreciate it if everyone spreads the word. It's this Saturday, so want to make it a great event.
Hopefully you get as good a weather as we have right now. But if you're under the bridge, then you should be fine, rain or shine.
It's just the ride we worry about a little bit.
Yeah. The motorcycle riders, my dad's one, if it's a little rain, that shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah.
But it's a great cause. If everyone wants to show up there, I'm sure it's going to be a great time. Thank you, Michael, for coming on and talking about it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course, anytime.
I can't wait till we get back to the road breakfast, though.
July 14th is our first in-person. We'll put a little plug in. I think we're getting down to, we only have about 10 spots or so left. So hopefully they'll fill up soon. And then we're looking at another one, I think in August, and more to come after that. So we're really excited to get back to it. But you can find out information about that. It's going to be a 2-mile run, July 14th, veteransbreakfastclub.org/July-14. If you haven't registered yet, I think it's $15 per person. Hoping for a beautiful day over there in 2 Mile Run, my hometown.
You can have the drill instructors call them cadence.
We should. I think that's a good idea.
Just saying.
Yeah.
You'll learn the Jody songs.
That's right. That's a great idea. I'll talk to Todd.
Carl's hand go up for that.
What's that, Barb?
I saw Carl's hand go up for that.
Carl, please. You are voluntold.
Nice.
Ellie, I think your nickname would be Neo. You're sort of our back end technical person. I'd probably give you the Neo, which is more respectful than like, hoodie or something.
Yeah, that would be good too.
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for coming on this morning for coffee hour. Veronica, thank you for joining us are you in Kansas right now?
I am.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure I was unmuted. I am. I'm been in Kansas as long as I can remember.
That's good. Todd and I were doing some research and we sort of found Veronica's interview on YouTube, and that's what sort of led us to reach out to her and invite her on for the drill instructor sergeant conversation, which was incredibly educational for me. There was a lot of things, like I said at the beginning, I want to sort of dispel some myths, but I also just want to learn a lot more. And now I feel like I have a much better understanding of everything. I'm going to be the one that whenever I watch military movies now with my wife and be like, that's not true.
Hey, I want to throw this in. So you talk about the nicknames. So, for example, in my platoon, Veronica comes there. We learned that Veronica's from Kansas. Guess who it is? Dorothy. You're not in Kansas anymore.
And that's for male and female.
Dorothy's for male. Yeah.
One real quick thing I just want to say. I just want to remind everybody that the Veterans Benefit Administration Office for Public Contact is open on the 17th floor of the Federal Building. This particular week I was working Monday and I helped a veteran file his very first claim, a Vietnam veteran file his very first claim. And I had about 3 or 4 veterans come in requesting benefit letters or DD Form 214s. So if you need some in-person service, just don't forget that the VA is open for business Mondays through Fridays, 8 o'clock till 3:30 on the 17th floor of the Federal Building. That's all.
Is that
Thank you,
what
Ron.
do?
What's that?
Is that what you do?
Yes, I work in public contact for the Veterans Benefit Administration. And looks like we're going to start gearing up pretty soon here for getting back out in the public and doing outreach events. My first outreach event is going to be up in Crawford County in August, but there's more to come.
I'm going to put my number in the chat. Send me a text, please, if I can get in there quick enough.
And also come back Monday night. Veronica, you're welcome to join us at any time for any of our programs. We usually Monday nights and Wednesday mornings. But this coming Monday night, I'm sure a lot of you will remember the gentleman, Francis Gary Powers, that was shot down. His U-2 plane was shot down over Russia. There was in the Steven Spielberg movie Bridge of Spies. We're going to have his son, Gary Francis Powers Jr., who wrote the book Spy Pilot, on Monday night to chat about his dad, his book, and the fact that he also started the Cold War Museum. So that's going to be a really great conversation coming up on Monday. Otherwise, I hope everybody is able to get out and enjoy this beautiful day, no matter where you're at. And I really thank you all for coming on this morning.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Of course, Veronica. Thank you. Carl, Bart, thank you both for coming on. Thank you for the stories. And Ron, as long as you got that number, we're good to go.
All right, thank you very much.
Yeah, everyone, have a great day.